Hey guys, what's happening? Welcome back to this little learning thing that I'm trying. Um, I gotta be honest with you though, for the last few weeks I've been thinking about just not doing this because, you know, I've discovered a couple of YouTubers in particular that really sort of made a couple of things click with me. And I just thought to myself, they're doing this so much better than I could be passing on to you. I don't know how much value I can add to this other than just, documenting what I'm learning, which I guess is kind of the point in the first place, and I guess why I'm doing this anyway. Not because I'm some sort of good guitar teacher. I'm not even a guitar teacher. I don't know anything here. That's what I'm trying to do is learn, and I'm trying to document my learning process so that it motivates me to keep learning more, and that's what I did with the guitar aerobics program. It was a good motivation to sort of have a reason to post things, just to document my own progress. So anyway, long story short, I think I will keep doing this at least for a little while. And so yeah, let's get into it. The last time that I brought up this subject, it was talking about root notes, octaves, and things like that. So if you watched that previous video, you'll know, or you should know, like I do, the root positions. So position 1 is root on the B string, and you have another octave on the A string. And position 2 is the A string octave. So from A string to G string. Position 3 is the G string octave. Position 4 is the low E or high E string octave. And position 5 is the D string octave, which leads you back into position 1. So I was using those as sort of a way to learn the note names, which I'm still kind of severely lacking. But it's one of those things where you pick a root somewhere, anywhere on the fretboard. Let's just say here. So this is 7th fret G string. So that's the G string root. So you have another root up here. And since you have a root on high E, you have the same root on the low E. But what is that note named? So I guess the best way to do it is find a note that's close to it that you can see, and like a note, say from that's close to the open strings or close to the 12th fret, because you should know those right off the top of your head. The open strings are E, A, D, G, B, and E. Same on the 12th fret. So in this case, 7th fret G string, you have a root up here. So this root is 2 steps below E. So what's below E? You have E, D sharp, D. So this note is a D. And I think that's a pretty good way of learning the note names anyway. I mean, it's not something that you can do while you're playing if you don't know them, to sort of be counting in your head to the next group of frets that you do know the names of, and then working out how it is from there. This is just a way to sort of memorize them as you practice, I guess. I don't know if there is a way to actually learn it while you're playing, that's probably just a little too difficult. But anyway, I came to a realization while I was doing that, and I remember a YouTuber named Levi Clay, who is also a guitar teacher and a contributor to various magazines. He's a guitar transcriber, that kind of thing. He really knows what he's talking about. And I remember him talking about the caged system. And it's called caged because it's named after the chord shapes, C, A, G, E, and D. And I realized that it's tied to the root positions. So position 1 is C, right? So if your root is over here and you want to play a chord of that, anyway, edit. So if you want to play another C, you can play it with the various roots of C. So what I mean by that is from position 1 you have the C shape. And in this case that gives you a C chord because the roots that we're using are C's. So that's a C chord. If you want to make another C on a different spot on the fretboard, you take the last root that you used. So in this case, we'll go to position 2. So the position 2 root is here. And so the next chord uses an A shape, which an open A is played like this. So if you play an open A shape with the 3rd fret as a root, that's also a C chord, or in this case, a C bar chord. But that's the A shape, so you have a C shape, an A shape, and it's still a C chord. So the next root, this will use the G shape, and this one is tough because you have to bar so far back with this finger, but that is a C chord. So you're just using your roots, root here, and root there. But in the case of this root, you have to bar. Use the 2 roots that go with position 3 and make a G shape with your non-barred fingers. It's, like I said, it's hard to do and it's hard to sound everything out, but that's the G. So if you move to your next shape, position 4, that's an E shape. So E shape looks like this. But in this case, if you slide it up to where we were, which, where were we? We were right here. So this is also a C chord because you're making a bar at your last root position and you're adding in an E major shape with the rest of your fingers. So that's a C chord. And then the last one, you bar the root that you used and then make a D shape with your other fingers, which is also difficult. I find the G and the D's are the hardest ones to do, but that's a C chord. And then you can start over. So that was kind of neat to sort of tie those together in my head anyway. And it probably seems obvious now that I think of it, but I didn't think of it then, so it was kind of cool to notice that. And yeah, so I got that from Levi Clay, or at least I made the connection to what Levi Clay was saying by looking at these root shapes. Now, having said that, I also watched a video by a guy named Ben Eller, who is probably the most amazing guitar teacher I think I've ever seen, because he just explains things in a way that I instantly sort of understand. And he might not be the perfect guitar teacher for everybody, because everybody learns differently, but in my case, he really explains things really well and makes it easy for me to understand without having to know all kinds of theory or whatever behind what he's saying. So he has a video which I'll link in the description, and it's about figuring out which keys go in which chord, or sorry, which chords go in which key, rather. How to find, I think the title is how. It's from one of his Here's Why You Suck at Guitar series, and it's about figuring out which chords belong in whatever key you're using, and it can be any key. And it's a really helpful video, and it also makes you practice the note names. So I'm not going to get into it here because he explains it way better than I do. I highly suggest you check out the video, and once again I'll link it in the description. But I think it's a great way to practice naming your notes and hopefully committing them to memory. And the other thing that I learned, which is the last thing I'll do in this video, was a video by Henning Pauly, which I will link that video in the description as well. It's called Power Chord Theory, and it's the first of a series of 4 videos I think he's going to make on it. And it's another thing that just sort of opened my eyes. And he also explains it in the way that you don't need to know the theory behind it. You'll sort of learn the theory that you need to know as you go. So he explains power chords are always root, fifth, and octave, which is 1, 5, 8. Every power chord is 1, 5, 8. And he then explains that by adding or subtracting notes from the power chord, they can give you all kinds of interesting chord shapes. So, and he also explains the I guess they're intervals. So you have the first is the root, which I guess is also the 8th or the octave. So those are roots. They don't have sharps or flats, or I guess I can't remember how it's explained, but anyway, there are certain intervals that have major and minor variations. So like if you play a power chord, root 5, 8. If you play root 5 and a half step lower than the 8, you get a major 7th chord, because the intervals, I guess, go from 8 to major 7th. And if you play another half step below that, you get a minor 7th. So power chord, major 7th, minor 7th. And he explains more ways to manipulate the power chords to give you all kinds of interesting sounds. He explains what the notes are called in terms of the intervals and how to find them. So that also is a really big help, guys, and I highly recommend that video. Once again, links to everything will be in the description. Hopefully, you might have heard of these guys already. If not, hopefully I've gained them a couple of new subscribers, because they are pretty awesome. Anyway, that's all I have for you this time. I'm going to try to keep practicing and getting better at my note names, because it seems like knowing your note names really unlocks a lot of things for you on the guitar. So that's what I'm going to keep working on anyway. Let me know how you guys are doing. Let me know if you guys have anything to add to what I'm learning. And point me in the direction of other YouTubers or teachers that you think are great, that I could probably learn something from. And if I haven't heard of them, I'll check them out for sure. So thanks as always for watching, guys, and I will see you next time, hopefully. Take it easy.